Hi, guys. This is Daniel Alexander Cannon, and this is the Supernatural Show, a show that is not for entertainment purposes only. We're here today actually to start a conversation about one of the rabbit holes that leads to the main rabbit hole. So we're going to take a little trip down a proverbial rabbit hole and just kind of talk about, have a discussion about Operation Menia Bridge. Operation Menia Bridge. And yes, that's the live chat from the Logic Before Authority channel that you can see there live. So y'all guys are in the show with me here today. And hopefully everybody behaves with their language, because I see Max in there with the wrench. And so he's the guardian today of the chat, Max. And of course, I've got Miss Kim here watching it here with me today, beside me here, and other people who are moderators as well. But we have you main stage, as you can see. So, Operation Menia Bridge. What that is it is the name that they have given to the planning of the death and funeral for King Charles, right? And it's a coded, highly coded message, and somewhat of an invitation for me. One of y'all guys made me aware of this. Anyways, the Queen, when she supposedly was dying, hers was Operation London Bridge. Now this one is Operation Menia Bridge. Now, Menia Bridge there is a actual bridge called Menia Bridge that is in well, let me share my screen here if I can. Yeah, okay. That is in Great Britain, and you can see an image of it here, of course. This is kind of what the bridge itself looks like. Well, thought I could have found a better picture than that. Let's see here. Maybe this one will work better. So yeah, so there's the bridge, and there's a town there called Menia Bridge as well. So I started digging, and I found that, and I said, okay, there's a bridge there named this, and it's over the Menia Strait, which is a long piece of ocean water actually that separates the island of Menia from the mainland, you might say. But I knew that was just, they've named this area they named the bridge after it. There's obviously some deep history somehow here with it. So I started to look a little bit, and well, first thing I did was basically look at the name itself, and Menia is actually a word that in a number of languages means mania, but it's the plural feminine version of the word. Okay, so it's mania, but it's plural, meaning manias, meaning more than one mania, and it's the feminine version. Okay, and so I thought that was pretty interesting. It's called Operation, basically, Menia Bridge. It's like a bridge to insanity. Mania is when people it's really a word that's defined as being like when someone goes ecstatic over something, like sports mania or something like that. So we know the word is tied to people going crazy or losing it, overly fired up about something, right? And of course, it says it's an operation, so we know it's something that's planned, and it's a bridge. So it's a crossing it's tied to the passing of King Charles, as they call him. And if you pull up your old trusty gematria calculator, and you put it in there. Operation, Menia bridge. I appreciate all y'all guys being here today. There's quite a bunch of you piled in already on numerous platforms, so I greatly appreciate y'all guys being here. Interested in learning truth, or the seeking of truth. In this case, in this video, we're more seeking than we are sure about anything. So here we go. And if we go down, I think if I spelled it correctly, let me see here. I know it matches King Charles III. And if I spelled it correctly, let's see here. King Charles III. Let me just type in let's see, Operation Menia Bridge. I've already done this, and I have it on my phone, and I was going to show it off my phone, but I'm having problems with the software again that I'm using that links to my computer. It works fine until I get ready to go live, and then it crashes, and I don't get that part. So Operation Menia, AI. Oh, I got it spelled wrong. That's what it is. Well, that might not be it because it's the same letters. It's AI. And did I spell bridge correctly? Let's see. Menia bridge. Oh, I'll just get to the point. The point is that it has the same gematria as King Charles III. Okay, with the third being spelled out. So it's an exact match. That's millions or billions to one that it should be matching that, but it does. So I thought, okay, it's just one little thing to check, because this is what this video, what this live show is today, is just showing you something I'm looking into. And something you have to realize too is that, like Wrestling Mania. I see a comment there from Alan. Wrestling Mania. Yep, exactly. How people lose touch with reality, okay? And like they actually get into and want to believe like wrestling is real. And they make choices, economic choices. They get in fights. They make choices, real world choices based off of this information. In this case, it's WWF wrestling, right, Alan? But in reality, it ain't real at all. But in their minds, it's real. Okay, so therefore, it's hinting at that kind of thing. That kind of mania, I guess you'd say. Mania, like in Spanish, sounds like psych. Mania, or the fact that it's using those words, has to do with the word mental as well, or those letters, I should say. It has to do with the mind, of course, because we're talking about mania. And maniac. Exactly, Alan. I appreciate your participation here. And you did catch us live here, Donna. That's awesome. And you're in Australia. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Thank God we can still reach and have that kind of a reach, that I have someone from Australia live in the live stream today. I surely appreciate you being here, Donna. Thank you very much, my sister. Okay, so let's see here. Let's keep going. So, we got somebody else that finally caught one live. Jackie Burns finally caught one live down in North Mississippi. Nice. Thank you for being here. And thank you for that, Jackie. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for that, Eric. I appreciate that too. It's taken me quite a while to grow this beard, you might say. So now back to the main subject at hand here. We have is this Operation Mania, or Operation Menia. But I kept looking, okay? I knew there was more to it. And so I kept looking, and I was talking actually to Shannon, my co-host, which she's out in California right now. Her the land, the mountains and stuff around her mom's place, and around some other people that she knows personally, other family members, that the forest is on fire and it's getting close, and they're worried that it's going to burn her mom's house down, and some other people that she knows. So Shannon is running around like a chicken with her head cut off today over there, trying to help her family and stuff. I'm not sure what's going on with Dan today, why he's not here. I haven't heard back from him today. Hopefully he's okay. But we've got to keep going here. So I see some comments here. Manana, like tomorrow. Okay. Well, you have to consider all things, Margaret. So we should keep that in mind. Let's see here. So let's look at, let's go back to my other way of having my screen set up. Wherever it's at, right here. Here we go. So, I was talking to Shannon, okay, and what Shannon brought up is that it's probably, and I kind of already thought this, but I ain't going to take no credit away from Shannon because she was the one that made me look. But she thought it would have something to do with a Greek goddess, okay? So I started digging down that rabbit hole, right, of how it could be connected with a Greek goddess. And here's a picture of the bridge, a little bit better picture, okay? Yeah, it was supposed to be built in the 1800s, believe it or not. So this goes back a long time. So just trying to get my train of thought going here. Maybe I have a drink of water. So what we found out was that it is tied to the moon goddess, Menia, which was the name given a long time ago to what they called, it was a Greek goddess, you know how they like to roll, but they got a god for everything. Even their money is a god. So, but it was based on the moon. And it was said that her name was Menia, later on changed to Luna, and that she was the sister of Helios. Okay, so now we got an interesting tie, several interesting ties, because she's all of a sudden tied to Helios, like Heliofont, like iPad Go 2, and of course the Greek goddess thing. And I've got some more things I want to talk to you about when it comes to these images and the name Luna here in a minute. But I'm trying to find, where did I put my one thing that I'm looking for? Okay, here we go. I think this is what I wanted. It's going to take a minute because I'm going to have to read it, okay? I'm going to try to blow it up if I can, so that way y'all guys can see it better. Plus, I'll be able to see it a little better. Let's see if that's big enough. Let me share my screen. Let's see here. Let's see which way is the best way to do this. Got all kinds of ways I can lay it out. I want to lay it out so you guys can follow along. I know, I'm all over everywhere today, right? Just trying to see which way would be the best. I guess that'd be the best right there. Okay. Now, again, this is going to take a minute to read through, but there's some as we go on and go down through this, there are things in here. Remember earlier I said that this is a new rabbit hole, but all rabbit holes lead to the rabbit hole, or they lead to the rabbit, right? And So what we're talking about today is literally tied to iPet Goat. It's tied to the whole big story of what's going on in the world right now. It's a finger on a hand, you might say. And as I read through this, you're going to, some of it maybe wonder why I'm reading it, but then as you see some of the pieces that are in here, it gets kind of interesting. So I didn't expect this story to go this direction, to be quite honest with you, but it did. So it says the origin of the Olympics, ancient calendars, and the race against time. Okay, and so let's read this. Throughout the world, all ancient and primitive cultures have held a similar type of ceremony to celebrate the new year. In general, okay, so think new year, right? Is there imagery in iPad Goat, for instance, of there being a new year or a new time coming? Do we have it embedded into our culture right now, or I should say media, like the World Economic Forum's The Great Reset, right? Okay, so think about that as I'm reading this. So, ceremony to celebrate the new year. In general, this ritual usually involved someone who represented the old year being driven out by someone representing the new year. So, someone being driven out, someone coming in. So, think about, the king and a son going to replace him, which it kind of goes into that a little bit more in a second. So let's keep going. There are several myths. Well, actually, I didn't finish the last sentence, did I? Such a procession is precisely what occurred during the earliest Olympic festivals in Greece. There are several myths which describe the origin of these Olympic festivals, which were the inspiration for today's Olympic Games. One story tells of a man named Pelops who wanted to marry Hippodamia, the daughter of King Onomas, is what I'm going to call him. Onomas was willing to offer his daughter's hand to any potential suitor who could compete with him and win in a chariot race. Each contestant would take Hippodamia in his chariot and try to beat her father. But Onomas would always win and then kill the losing suitor. Before Pelops came along, Onomas had so far killed 12 suitors and hung up their heads for display. Hippodamia loved Pelops, and she secretly fixed her father's chariot so it would fail. In the race, his chariot crashed and Onomas died, making him the 13th victim. So Pelops won. Pelops got the girl, became the new king, and according to Pindar, 5th century BC, Pindar is an author, the Olympics were started to commemorate the chariot race of Pelops. So out with the old, in with the new. Where did I say that recently? I know it was on the show recently, right? So let's continue another paragraph, and then I'll come back to the comments, and we'll go from there. This story is more than a description of a sporting event. 3 important features tell us otherwise. First, it is a contest between an old and young king, ending in the death of the elder and the succession of the younger to the kingdom. Second, there is a carrying off of the bride, for at the end of the story, Pelops and Hippodamia drive off in the same chariot. Even though Hippodamia loves Pelops, this is a marriage by capture, a theme that appears in many myths. Third, there are some very suggestive numbers mentioned, namely 12 and 13, which relate to the lunar cycle. What were the gematria matches again? Okay. Right here we got 12 right there. That's interesting. Okay, let's get back over here. and keep going. So namely 12 and 13, which relate to the lunar cycle. What this story reveals is a transition in calendar systems from the old moon-based calendar to one based on the motion of the sun. When the ancients began to adjust their calendar to the solar cycle, they did not wish to simply abandon the old lunar calendar completely. The great calendar problem of antiquity was how to fit together the old moon year with the new sun year. Now, understand, guys, I'm not promoting in any way Greek mythology or promoting really any of this. What I'm doing is I'm looking through, trying to gain any understanding I can as to what they might be doing, what kind of a ritual they might be following. We know all of what they're doing goes back into things they've done before, into things that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, most of it thousands. We know that they worship the sun and the moon and the planets as deity, okay? And they believe that they are the most high deities. They don't worship God himself. They worship the creation, okay? So let's keep going, and we'll art of war, know thine enemy. Exactly. That's right, Ellie. That's exactly why I'm doing it. Yeah. Y'all guys mind hitting that thumbs up button? I appreciate it. All right. So let's keep going here. So in order to explain how they did this, meaning fix the calendar problem, it gets much more interesting. Trust me. We're going to find some things in here to just make you go, what? Or, They're coming. Trust me. So in order to explain how they did this, we need to review some basic astronomical math. As we know now, the sun appears to turn once through the zodiac in about 365.25 days, one tropical year. The Greek word tropikos probably means turning. The moon takes about 29.53 days to move through one synodic month. Synodic comes from the Greek word syn, meaning with, and hodos, meaning the way. Thus, synhodos, meaning a meeting of the ways, meaning the sun and the moon meeting, coming together like in a union, like a marriage. Kind of like how we had the sun and moon come together back on April 8th of this year, in 2024, when I said when the sun and moon would come together that there would be a great spark. And what happened after the sun and moon came together? We had the greatest spark coming off of the sun that everyone's seen worldwide that's ever happened, that anybody alive today has ever seen. I was right in that prophecy. So let's keep going. So a meeting of the ways. The ancients wanted to coordinate these two systems of timing, but the sun cycle and the moon cycle cannot be made to fit the whole numbers 12 and 13 because such a long decimal is not easily translated into whole numbers of days. It was a big challenge in ancient times to figure out how to reconcile the lunar calendar with the solar. The Greeks, however, figured out a rather neat solution. So again, what I'm doing is I'm sharing with you some of the things I'm considering in order to ultimately come up with what I will come up with as an understanding of what this all means. I doubt I will have that understanding to give to you today. We're studying this together live. And after I finish this paragraph here, I will look at the comments and see what y'all guys' ideas and what you're saying. So they started a new calendar called the Octoteris. Okay, the Octoteris, which was 8 solar years or 99 lunar months. So the number 8, as in, like the numbers that are on Trump's podium, 88. And the shape that the sun and moon make, the analemma, when they move through a single year, and you take a photo each week of the sun and take a photo each week of the moon, or excuse me, each day for the moon because it's in a month. But the moon, you take a photo each day for a month, the sun each week for a month, and it will form an 8, the letter 8 in the sky. I find that very interesting, and I think it's tied. But again, let's keep going. So, which was 8 solar years or 99 lunar months? They arranged the 8 years so that there were 5 years containing 12 months each and 3 years containing 13 months. They inserted each of the 3 extra months in the 3rd, 5th, and 8th years. So the 3rd, 5th, and 8th years would have the extra month. So 13 months instead of 12. According to legend and Greek historians, the Greeks started keeping this 8-year calendar when they started the Olympic Games in 776. So it's interesting how they're planning Operation Menia Bridge at the same time the Olympics were going on recently. Interesting, okay? And then you got that the Olympic Games started in 776. Of course, that reminds me of 1776, the year that supposedly we became free as a nation and all this, right? Independence and all that. And which I don't believe anymore because none of us are free. Not one of us right now, unfortunately. Not truly free. But you have 1776. Well, you have 776. To my mind, it goes to 1776. And in 1776, which is the height of the One World Freedom Tower, you divide that by 2. They like to call everything the opposite of what it is, don't they? The One World Freedom Tower, when it's the tower they do the business in to enslave the world. Yep. Upside down and backwards is how the devil does it. So 1,776 feet divided by 2 is 888. Very interesting. Later, they measured the Octarius as 2 4-year periods, one of 49 months and one of 50 months. And they called these 4-year periods Olympiads. This 4-year period still survives today. Each 4 years, we add a leap day in February. And we also hold the Olympics. In America, we even elect a president, a new king every 4 years, or a new pharaoh every 4 years. I added the word pharaoh. But then here we have a reference to a new king coming in, right? So we have the king going out, the new president coming in. We have the Olympics this year as well. And I can't help but see how all this is somehow tied together. So let me take a look at the comments here because I did say I was going to just see if anybody's saying anything that's related. I know you guys just chit-chatting a lot in here, which is fine. Yeah. Well, there's you're looking, Mike, you're looking at one channel. I'm broadcasting live on 8 platforms right now. So yeah, there should be more, but you have to understand too that my channel is shadow banned. So when I go live or put out a video, only about 5% of my subscribers are notified. That's what they do when you're shadow banned, is they only notify 5% of your subscribers. And they continuously unsubscribe the people whoever has been the longest that haven't been back to my channel, they unsubscribe them so they'll forget about me. That's how this works, unfortunately. Let's see here. Just looking at the comments just a little bit more. Scott says the military never cross a bridge in lockstep. Yeah, depends on what channel you're on, Donna, as to whether you'll see your comments on the screen or not. Which right now I've got them so small nobody can't really see them over there under my image. All right, let's keep going. Okay, it says one solar year is 365 days. 12 months equals 12 times 29 point. Trust me, we're going to get to some interesting stuff, but for me, I have to pay attention to this kind of stuff. It's important for me to be able to understand what might be going on so that I can then discern what I need to bring to y'all guys ultimately. Okay. So you're kind of getting to see something I normally do by myself, but I'm doing it with y'all guys, although I've already read all of this. So, and then it goes on explaining 13 months is 383 days, too many. 12 months is 354 days, too few. It's talking about trying to how to match it up with a solar year of 365 days. It says, however, 8 years times 365.25 days is 2,922 days, and 99 months times 29.53 is 2,923.5 days. So almost the same amount, just a day and a half different. So the sun and moon are conjoined every 8 years or 99 lunar months with a difference of about 1.5 days. If we follow this race, meaning the sun and moon, through its entire cycle, as the Greeks added 1 month during the 3rd and 5th years, we would see that the moon and sun take turns leading until the last leg of the cycle, the 8th year. When the final extra month is added, and then the solely lunar congruence happens, and the race is a tie, meaning they come together as one. Okay, I find that interesting. The Olympic Games were a movable festival like Easter, which combines the lunar and solar calendars. Easter is determined as the first Sunday after the first full moon after spring equinox. The scholars of the late 19th century believed that the Olympic Games were held at the second or third full moon after the summer solstice. And this fact is often still repeated in modern texts. However, more recent research has shown that this is not how the Greeks figured it. Their counting process actually began earlier in the year. The date for celebrating the Olympics was actually determined as the 8th full moon following the first full moon after the winter solstice. This date can correspond to either the second or third full moon after the summer solstice, which is what confused earlier scholars. Here's how it goes. And I know some of this is a little bit more hard to grasp, which is why I have to read this numerous times, along with many other things, in order to even understand or have a clue what I should ultimately bring to y'all guys. I just decided to kind of do it with you, some of it today. Start with the first full moon after the winter solstice. In 777 BC, this occurred in late December. Then count forward 8 more full months. The first Olympics occurred in August 776. From this date, count 49 more full moons, July 772 BC. Then count 50 more full moons, July 768 BC, a total of 99 moons every 8 years. The ancient Olympics were always held at a time we would call July or August, when both the sun and moon were strong. The sun's energy is strong in the summer, and the moon is more strong when it is full. The myth about the origin of the Olympic Games shows it is essentially a New Year festival. A New Year festival. And I find that interesting because of many things. The easiest one that y'all guys would recognize would probably be like in the iPet Goat video. It showed there was several scenes, but mainly one big scene in there where it showed Father Time, the skeleton looking thing, where he was coming up and tapping the girl on her back. The girl looks like she's from maybe North Korea, that was holding the white flag, and she was standing in a the symbol of a solar eclipse. The light was moving under her feet, giving the yin-yang symbol, which the yin-yang symbol is a symbol of a solar eclipse. And she was standing in it, and the skeleton old man Time was blowing a kazoo and wearing a top hat, which leads me to New Year's Eve in Times Square, or Times Squared, actually is how I call it. And these things all tie together. They're little clues about things related to the big story, the rabbit, right? So Olympic Games shows it is essentially a New Year's festival, the inauguration of a year. Now you have to understand, these guys use a different calendar than we use. And honestly, I'm not sure what calendar it is that they use. Okay. It is concerned with the royal marriage of the sun and the moon. The royal marriage of the sun and the moon. First off, the sun and the moon are supposedly, from Greek mythology, they are supposedly brother and sister, right? But, that don't bother them the way they do things. But it's a royal marriage. It's the coming together of the royal marriage of the sun and the moon. Now, go back to I Pet Goat here again. Many of you will remember me saying, right at the birth scene in I Pet Goat, where the Antichrist figure comes out of the birth canal, it shows a gargoyle right above it, and he has two bright eyes. And I said, this is symbolism of the coming of the second sun, meaning the Antichrist coming down. Now, this is talking about how they came to calculate and how they looked at the sun and the moon, how they calculated the calendar and how they looked at the sun and the moon, and ultimately them coming together as a royal marriage of the sun and the moon. I mean, this is kind of some of the language they're using here. I'm reading it, and you're hearing it. As an interesting side note, the queen and king in a pack of playing cards are the 12th and 13th cards in a suit, following the jack, which is an 11, and the 10 card. So you see, they've got this sun and moon calendar built into playing cards. Did you ever wonder why you had the 10 and then the jack, which was an 11, and then the 12th and the 13th cards? The king and the queen, right? All right, so let's keep going. So this analysis leads us to make a suggestion concerning the study of myths. Special attention should be paid to the stories containing contests, races, a marriage or meeting, or a change in rulership. These are likely to be astronomical in nature, and I agree with her. I didn't write this. A lady wrote this. And I will take the link to this and drop it in the comments. So if any of y'all guys want it, there it is. Okay. So there is another Greek myth that explains the calendar relationship of the sun and moon. The story of Atalante, I think is how it's pronounced. Atalante was an athletic girl raised by a bear in the mountains. She was, this is another Greek myth. She was a virgin and a huntress, quite clearly a human version of Artemis, the moon goddess. She was also an excellent runner, and no one could catch her. So what they're doing here is they're talking about the moon, kind of, okay? Well, not kind of, they actually are. So she was also an excellent runner, no one could catch her. Atalante was pursued by a steady parade of admirers, but she could outrun them all. She finally agreed to marry anyone who could beat her in a race, but any challenger who could not beat her would be killed. In this story, the goddess Aphrodite, Venus, gets involved. Venus likes everyone to obey their sexual urges. So she helped one suitor, Hippomenes, to fix the race. Venus gave Hippomenes 3 golden apples. So now we're back to apples again. So now you have Venus. Venus goes around. Let me make sure I'm right before I say. I think it's 88 days is how long it takes. Let's see, Venus. 88 days. Mercury is 88, excuse me. Venus is 225. Okay. All right. So it brings up the apple thing. Let's keep reading. Venus gave Hippomenes 3 golden apples and told him to drop 1 apple each time that Atlantis started to overtake him. So now we're talking about dropping an apple. Really? I mean, I was like, when I seen this and read this, I was like, tied in with everything else and the Olympics and the sun and the moon and everything that we know that I've covered and everything that's happened. And then they start talking about apples being dropped. And it's talking about, it says that she told him to drop 1 apple each time Atalante started to overtake him. So this is not something, this is talking about a long period of time where an apple drops once every so many years, okay? Maybe even centuries. It's how I'm relating it to our current situation, okay? So 3 golden apples and told him to drop 1 apple each time that Atalante started to overtake him. As Atalante stopped to pick up the apples, she fell behind just barely enough for Hippomenes to win the race. In this story, the 3 golden apples symbolize the 3 extra months added in the Octarius, which is a calendar, to keep the moon in step with the sun and the seasons. Since the 99 lunar months are just a little bit longer, 1.5 days, than 8 solar years, this small discrepancy is the amount by which Atalante lost the race. And I realized, because I know how hard it is to get my mind around even what I'm reading. So I also realize it's hard to get your mind around it. And this is the first time you're hearing it. So trust me, I get it. But this is kind of a reading, a study with no conclusion probably today, okay? So let's go ahead. 8 years times 365.25, 2922 days. 5 Venus cycles times 584 days, 2920 days. 99 months times 29.53 days, 2923.5 days. So astronomically, the period of 8 solar years has triple significance. So here we are talking about the 8 solar years now, and 8 being a very important number in the big picture of things right now, if you know what I'm talking about, because I don't want to have to explain why 8 is so important right now. Okay. But it is the time period that marks the meeting of the sun, moon, and Venus. Thus, for example, if the new moon appears close to Venus, now do you remember what? Oh, okay. Thank you, Father. Do you remember what stars were in the sky that were able to be seen during the eclipse? Of course, we could see the sun, the moon. There was Jupiter. The other one was Venus. Now, what was the closest one that you could see to the sun and the moon? It was Venus. Okay. So in here they are talking about it is the time period that marks the meeting of the sun, moon, and Venus at their closest come together point. You understand? Thus, for example, if the new moon appears close to Venus on a certain day, of the solar year, such as the day of the vernal equinox. Let's see. April 8th was the first day of spring. Let me see something here. I'll do another little searchy. Hang on, guys. Okay. Okay, they're saying it was in March, they're saying. Okay. March 19th. Oh. It was in 2019 when they announced that the planned, that Dimic thing, when it launched, that was about the 19th of March. Huh. See, there's another piece that ties. You just have to figure out how it all fits. You got different puzzle pieces you can recognize, but where do they go? Because we don't have the whole picture. So it says this configuration would appear on approximately the same date 8 years later. Okay, that's interesting. 8 years later from 2019, of course, would be what, 2027? March 2027, which should be approximately the end of tribulation period, maybe 8 years, 7. Anyways, we got a lot to comprehend here, but I'm going to keep going for now. Okay. So, because there's a lot of other cool things in here I want y'all guys to see and hear. So let's keep going here. All right. There is much mythological evidence for the 8-year cycle. Here we go. Apollo. Okay, now Apollo, see, and I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings here. I'm sure of it. Well, let's just put it this way. In Trump's 66th floor palace up at in New York City, in his apartment there, his penthouse apartment, he has Apollo, depictions of Apollo, statues and paintings all throughout his golden room. Okay, I'll just leave it at that for now. Apollo had to serve 8 years. Now, see, how many years is Trump trying to serve? 8. So he's done served 4, which is one number that's related to this calendar. And now he's going to serve 4 more, and or at least is supposed to serve 4 more, because he will be ultimately elected. But it's going to be a mess. And I'll repeat it again that Vance is not going to be the VP. That Kennedy will be the VP. Something will happen and put Kennedy in, either right before the election or after. Probably before. Kennedy will be in as VP. All the numbers match up. Everything I can see match up for Kennedy being the VP. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So Apollo had to serve 8 years with Admetus after he killed the dragon Python. Okay. The Athenian Games were, in the beginning, celebrated every 8 years. There was also a Greek myth about King Minos of Crete that involved the 8-year cycle. Every 8 years, Athenians had to sacrifice 7 youths and 7 maidens, 14, a lunar number, to the Minotaur in payment for the death of Minos' son. And every 8 years, Minos went up into the mountains to converse with his father Zeus. a tradition known to Homer. Evidently, many of the Greek kings had to replenish their power at the end of 8 years by fresh communion with their deity. At Sparta, every eighth year, the ephors had to watch for signs in the sky on a clear and moonless night. If they saw a meteor, the king would be removed from office. Now, a meteor is interesting again that they mention this because of our studies on what meteors are. And it also comes, I believe it comes and starts talking about comets as well here in a minute. Okay, so if they saw a meteor, the king would be removed from office, is what they're talking about in this mythology. And this is Greek mythology. There's also myth that relates to the origin of the Olympic Games and involves Heracles. Okay, hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly. But I'll be right back, guys. You're saying Matt? Yeah. Just trying to decide if someone's trying to be I don't know. I'm just going to leave that alone for now. Sorry, guys. Let's get back to what we were doing. There's another myth that relates to the origin of the Olympic Games and involves Heracles. Heracles, however you want to say it, who was recognized as the sun god. Many of his 12 laborers correspond to the 12 signs of the zodiac, such as the slaying of Neoman, lion, or Leo, capturing the Cretan bull, Taurus. One of the 12 labors imposed on Heracles was to clean the cattle stables of King August of Elis, a city-state located about 30 miles from Olympia. He accomplished his task in one day by diverting the Alpheus River from its course and causing it to flow through the stables. According to this myth, Heracles celebrated his success by founding the Olympic Games. Historically speaking, Elis was in actuality the city slash state that supervised the Olympic Games, and the peak of the Olympic festival occurred when 100 oxen were sacrificed. So you notice it brought up a bull, okay, like Taurus. You remember at the Olympic Games, the stage they had where like the judges or someone was sitting, they were all in a line, and there was this big bull, his head was sticking out through the back of the stage. It was an actual statue that they had built there some years prior, and the head of the bull was sticking out through the stage itself. That's in the story. Okay, we'll keep reading, and he's going to show back up here in a few minutes. Okay. So there is an interesting feature in the story of cleaning the Augean stables, and that is the mention of specific numbers. According to the myth, the stables had not been cleaned in 30 years, and since 3,000 cattle had been kept in it, the accumulation of filth was tremendous. Also, Heracles was required to clean the stables in just one day. Let's consider the possibility that this myth refers to a calendar problem. If the earlier Greeks were using a calendar system that was not very accurate, there would be a buildup of time discrepancies that would eventually be noticeable as an accumulation of filth that needed to be cleaned out. The fact that Heracles was able to accomplish this feat in one day suggests that all he had to do was simply adjust the calendar Technically speaking, the Gregorian calendar was adjusted on one day by simply changing the date. The ancient Mesoamericans did the same thing with their calendars. The following is an explanation of how the myth of the Augurian stables could represent a solution to the calendar problem. According to one ancient writer, Censorius, the earliest and least accurate solely lunar calendar that the Greeks used was formed by alternating years of 12 and 13 lunar months. They allowed 12 lunar months for 1 year and 13 months for the next year, an average of 12.5 months per year. Thus, every 8 years they were counting 100 lunar months. The number of oxen sacrificed during the Olympic festival. Okay. Were there, some of my questions were because I didn't watch the Olympics, and I'm wondering if they, in all of their, the opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies, or anything in the Olympics that looked like they were sacrificing oxen or anything like that. Okay. I don't know if y'all guys seen anything. If you did, put it in the comments and I'll try to see it. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of people saying some off-color stuff, but you don't get in trouble here for off-color. You get in trouble here for attacking people, mainly is what you get in trouble for, or blaspheming. That'll get you banned real quick. Okay, so you see, where was I at? Okay, with the real value being 12.368 lunar cycles per year, the Greek lunar calendar would drift off the solar calendar at a rate of 4 days per year. You see, what's crazy is that as ridiculous and boring and as complicated in one aspect as this is, what I'm reading, it is also what they count on that we're not willing to take the time to try to understand the way they look at things. You know, they don't think that we're willing to take the time to figure this stuff out. I am. And I work for y'all guys. I work for the public. Y'all guys are the ones that provide the income that I get. So I take the time and I'll read. I sit and read for hours on end a lot of times. All right, so let's keep going here. Let's see where was I at? If each of the years mentioned in the myth were symbolic, as they sometimes were in myth, one 8-year period, then 30 of these years would have in actuality been 240 years, 30 times 8, and 240 real years of 12.5 months each equals 3,000 months. See, one thing you have to understand too as well is that everything, Ellie, new member of the Supernatural.Show. That is awesome. I appreciate you, Ellie. And I have been putting up some Beyond the Veil content. I call it Beyond the Veil because only members of the channels of Logic Before Authority or the Supernatural.Show can see it. Or if you're a member of the website. If you're a member of my website, you get access to all the Beyond the Veil videos. Sometimes it's conversations when I'm having conversations with people. Sometimes it's when I'm doing research, and it's not a show per se. I'll record myself doing the research so people can see how I actually do the research. And then other times Beyond the Veil is used for subject matter that can't be talked about openly on YouTube or Facebook. It's too true, you might say, or it's on hot buttons that they don't want us to talk about, like there's a number of right now that I'd get in trouble if I was to talk about it on YouTube. So long being short, Ellie, I greatly appreciate you becoming a new member. Thank you. All righty, let's see here. Let's keep going. So I was saying, let's just keep going. Remember the story mentioned earlier about Heracles capturing the 3 apples of Hesperides, which were guarded by a dragon? Now, doesn't that sound interesting? An apple's being guarded by a dragon. And we have, like with I Pet Goat, we have the apple that was dropped and it rolled over and hit Barack Obama on the foot, and he was staring at it. And it was right at his foot, and his foot was sitting on a coin that was, I forget the name of the king now. It's in the documentary, the hidden symbolism of the end, that's on my channel, that's done really well for a video from me, for my channel, because I'm so shadow banned. But yeah, see, Barack Obama in Hebrew, I think it's Hebrew, it means I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. So the Barack Obama personality in I Pet Goat is the dragon. Okay, so here we have in this storyline of this antiquity, this Greek myth, here we have a dragon guarding an apple. Okay, all right, so let's keep going. So Heracles captured the 3 apples of Hesperides, which were guarded by a dragon. Now, it so happens that this dragon had to be placed as a guardian of the apples by Hera, the goddess of marriage. Hera had received the apples as a marriage gift from Gaia when she married Zeus. See, Gaia is kind of like a word for the earth, right? I could be correct in this particular usage, but it's very interesting when you think about the symbolism of all what being said here compared to what we know that's going on, along with information that was put publicly right in front of our nose, like I Pet Goat. Okay. Let's see here. Hera, incidentally, was the goddess who had suckled Heracles and given him his name. Meaning, I guess she breastfed him, is what they're kind of hinting at here. In addition to all these converging coincidences, Hera was also popular at Olympia. The first known temple to be built there was dedicated to her. So at Olympia, Hera had a temple. Okay. In the late 6th century BC, Olympic foot races, which were run by girls, were dedicated to Hera. This is another interesting story that connects to the Olympics with apples. This is another interesting story that connects the Olympics with apples. I find it interesting too. We know from history that it was a tradition for the Olympic victor to be crowned with an olive branch, which is another hint that this was an agricultural or seasonal New Year festival. There we have the New Year's mention again. But there is also some evidence that the victor's wreath was not originally from the olive tree. The ancient writer tells that in the 6th Olympiad, the Delphic oracle was consulted as to how the victor should be crowned, and the message was, do not make the fruit of the apple tree the prize of the victory, but take the wild olive. Where have I heard this recently, talking about the wild olive? I heard this on Casey over at Enter the Stars. He was talking about the wild olive and the cultured olive being grafted together and something like that. This was just a few days ago he talked about this. It's amazing how our work overlaps a lot. Coincidentally, the first victor to be crowned with olive was the winner of the foot race in the 7th Olympiad. This story tells us something about the transition or crossover period from lunar to solar calendar. The Greek calendar was controlled by the priestess of the Delphic oracle, who lunar harmonized the lunar with the solar calendar. It is known that during the earliest Olympics that there was one event, the foot race. There is also evidence that the foot race was a variation on the ritual mentioned earlier, which is common among many peoples of the world, i.e., a procession to the altar led by the New Year person or replacement king. Procession to the altar, kind of like sound like even like a marriage, led by the New Year person or replacement king. You know, in our traditional marriages these days, it's the dad who brings his daughter to the altar and gives her up to the new king or the new husband. Uh, yeah, so all this stuff's tied together. It's just a matter of figuring it out. Evidently, the foot race was more often associated with the moon. It was in Atalanti. It was in the Atalanti myth with the girls as in the foot races of Hera. Chariot or horse races, however, were associated with the sun, the solar cycle. And of course, the Egyptians, they used, instead of using chariots, that was kind of a Roman thing and a Greek thing. The Egyptians, they showed it as a boat, you know, the boat going through the heavens, and it would be like the sun or the moon or a coming king that was coming, like in I Pet Goat. You have the symbolism of the Antichrist figure in the boat, in the Egyptian style boat, coming across through time, through the heavens, and then being birthed out into our world, right? So again, you can see why I consider all these things in order to be able to bring you something that actually is very close to the truth of what's going on in our world, like I've done in other big videos I've done. Okay, so let's see here. So it says, chariot racing was not introduced at the Olympics until 680 BC, 96 years after 776 BC. And this is about the same time that the 4-year cycle Olympiad became well established and replaced the 8-year cycle. One scholar has suggested that this shift from moon 8-year cycle to sun 4-year cycle reflects a transition from matrimonial, no, excuse me, why is my tongue having a hard time pronouncing this? Patriarchal and matriarchal, whether I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, authority. If this is so, it is possible that the chariot race may have been a matriarchal test to check the virality and fitness of males to qualify as consorts. You see, it's like all about Genesis and creation and them relating the heavens and the movement of the stars, relating it into the human beings and the kings and queens and everyone here on the earth. And I'll say that there is truth in that. Like I've said, things that happen in the heavens will happen on earth. And when they happen in the heavens and happen on earth, they'll happen within. But I ain't saying that these guys have got it exactly right. But let's keep going. Let's see here. Where's that? Okay, if this is so, it is possible that the chariot race may be. Okay, I already read that. One ancient writer said that the Roman circus events represented the change of seasons, with the 2-horse race representing the moon and the 4-horse race chariot, that of the sun. Another ancient writer mentions that there were altars at the Circus Maximus in Rome, dedicated to the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And of course, that's because they believe all of these are gods and they worship them. And I'll tell you what these are not. These are not places you can go land a spacecraft. You cannot go land on the moon. You cannot go land on Mars. You cannot go to any of these places. And yeah, they likely are some type of deity. But the Bible talks about these planets and what they did wrong in order to be put in their way. Also, in the later Olympic festivals of Greece, there were 12 rounds of chariot race, and these may have represented the course of the sun through 12 signs, according to Pindar. And yeah, these guys back then, they based everything they did in the way that they created everything on Earth, whether it be their festivals or whatever. Like, for instance, in Paris, the basilicas, like, what's the one named that burnt down? That's depicted in I Pet Goat that burned down and was burned down or fell down the same way in I Pet Goat. Yeah, that one. All the basilicas in Paris and the surrounding area are laid out in the exact image of Virgo in the heavens. So the position of the stars in the heavens are the same positions on the earth of Catholic basilicas in Paris. Did you know that? In France. Yep. It's just like the three pyramids in Giza being in the same image of Orion's belt. You see, they mirror the heavens. You know how they say, as above, so below? That has to do with that. Okay. All right. So, according to Pindar, the chariot races were begun at the altar of the heavenly twins, Gemini. The foot races, on the other hand, were started in a different place, the tomb of Endymion, which represented the sinking sun who married Selene, the moon. So here we have now just talking about the sun marrying Selene, the moon. Another name for moon, of course, is Luna. And it's said in Greek mythology that, and Egyptian mythology especially, that the sun is called Helios, and that the sun and the moon get married every so often, apparently, and they have children. They come down, see? And I think these are periods in time, actually, where the fallen ones come down, okay, when they're cast out of heaven, is what it seems like to me. It says this pair had 50 daughters, which most scholars agree represented the 50 lunar months of the 4-year Olympiad. There is a parallel to these Olympic myths in a Hebrew tradition which combines the moon and sun races. According to this story, there was once a decision among rabbis concerning the hippodrome of Solomon, the hippodrome of Solomon. Solomon held 12 horse races each year, one for every month. One disciple was concerned about the lunar cycle and asked, why not 13, since there are 13 months? The rabbi answered, because one race was not a horse race, but a foot race, which was run in the intercalary month containing the winter solstice. Another parallel to the Olympic Games is the legendary ball game of the Maya, which was much more than a sports event. The myths that relate to the story of the ball game have to do with the gods and the planets, especially the sun, moon, and Venus. Mesoamerican calendars were very complex, but one main feature was the 8-year cycle of Venus. Yeah, that's what it was. Venus was 8 years, 8-year cycle of Venus, and Mercury was the 88 days of its precession. By the 5th century BC, the Greeks had realized that 99 lunar months was not a totally accurate equivalent of 8 solar years, and that a longer cycle of 19 years would work even better because it was nearly equal to 235 lunar cycles. Again, here's the math. I'll spare reading it to you, but it's less than a day different. Then so-called the so-called Metonic cycle showed up in myth as well. Apollo, in this case the sun god, was supposed to visit an island once every 19 years. An island, huh? That's interesting because the Menia Bridge takes you onto an island. Might not be related, but the bridge and the island is related to the name Menia, which means, if you're late to the show, Menia means chaos, or kind of like chaos. It means mania, people losing their mind or going crazy over something like the Olympics when it really don't mean anything. So it says was supposed to visit an island once every 19 years, according to one ancient writer, opposite to the coast of Celtic Gaul. There is an island in the ocean not smaller than Sicily, lying to the north, which is inhabited by Hyperboreans. On this island is a remarkable temple of Apollo, built in round form. When Apollo visits once every 19 years, the stars complete their revolutions, and the god Apollo plays the harp and dances. From the vernal equinox until the rising of the Pleiades, modern scholars have suggested that Hyperborea was probably Britain. Now, where did all this conversation start out at? Because of the King Charles III, the preparations for his funeral out of Great Britain. Okay, you know, a general area there where the Menia Bridge exists. That the bridge is in between Britain and the island, and the island obviously is the one they're talking about. Now I got to wonder if there is a temple to Apollo on the island. Let's find out. Let's take a look and see if Nina. Okay, let's see here. Where's it at? I don't know if they're talking about this one or not. Let's see. So this is what they're talking about. But is it where? I'm wondering if it is, because it sure sounds like it in the description. It says location. That don't look like it. Where is it? It would help if it was in English. Where is this at? There's Italy, Turkey. It's not where I was thinking it was at. From what they were describing, it was like they were describing something up there, but something connected in over here somewhere. I'll have to come back and check that so we don't get completely lost. But that is very interesting how they're talking about the island today with this myth and so on. And every 19 years. And so, yeah, all right. It says modern scholars have suggested that Hyperborea was probably Britain, and many have speculated that this remarkable round temple was Stonehenge. They aren't so sure about the frolicking period from the vernal equinox to the time of the Pleiades rising, but there's a possibility that this refers to extra time it takes to go from the eclipse cycle, 18.61 years to 19 years. So see, now this is talking about the eclipse cycle. And what have I been talking about for 6 months? For those who are interested in pursuing, okay, this is I put the link before, and I'll do it one more time in the comments. Oops, that is not the link. Okay, this next one will be the link. So you can read that for yourself and check out the writer if you're interested in some more of her stuff for whatever reason. I'm not promoting her, but that's her name right there. I guess I kind of am in a way, but I'm not meaning to promote her or anything to do with this stuff. It's just I have to understand this and read these things in order to have a clue what might be going on. Now, I wanted to show y'all guys, talk about Luna here for a second, or the moon, right? I've been asking myself, why is the moon feminine? Why do they talk about it being feminine? And I was meditating the other day, and it hit me as to why it's feminine, okay? I come out the next morning or after my meditation session, and I came out and I sat on the porch, and I could see the moon straight out in front of me, up in the sky just a little bit, and it was kind of pretty much a sliver. And what I noticed was that all the different phases of the moon, the geometry of the curves associated with the moon, are the same as curves on a woman's body. You see these images here, and if you look at some of these ones where it's not like a full moon over here, because when it's in full moon, it's considered to be Luna's crown or her head, okay? But as the moon phases change, you will see, depending on the orientation as to how you turn the moon, because it changes all kind of ways these days, doesn't it? But depending on orientation, you can see a woman's body, the general image of a woman's body, different parts of her body of the female form on the moon in its geometry itself. You see, the curve is what I'm talking about. And depending on which way you turn it, you can see breasts, you can see buttocks, and you can see other things. And of course, we also happen to know that, the moon cycles are tied directly to feminine menstrual cycles. Okay. So next time you're out looking at the moon, you can kind of look at it in a little different way and understanding why historians have tied the female to it, for one thing. And then, of course, there is, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, back before the eclipse this year, it came to me through prayer and meditation that there was going to be a spark to come off of the moon, off of the sun and moon, the sun. There was going to be a spark to come off of it. And some of the rationale as to why I was thinking that, of course, is because I'm looking at understanding creation as a whole itself. And Father's been allowing me to see and understand some of these things. So I looked at the sun as the masculine energy, just like the Greeks did. Okay. And I looked at the moon as the feminine essence, okay, or energy, whatever you want to call it. And when they come together in union, which is what the diamond ring is based off of, okay, which is a diamond ring is based off of an eclipse with just a little star of light sticking out the edge. They actually call it the diamond ring or the diamond. And yeah, that's what the diamond ring is based off of. It's based off the union of the sun and moon getting married, and then they produce a child. And when you produce a child, the human egg, when the sperm enters the human egg, here, let me switch us back to this. When the sperm enters the human egg, the female ovum, it causes a spark to happen. A large spark happens the moment that the sperm enters the egg. And when I'm looking at creation in order to understand creation, to me, that said, okay, here I have this concept of the sun and moon being feminine and masculine, being when they come together in union, there's the potential for birth. You see, a spark, because it's a birth coming forth of a deity of some kind, like in this case, the fallen angels or the Antichrist, that when that spark would happen, this would be the signal that this was coming, and that there should be other signals. Well, during the eclipse, we've seen all these weird looking things flying down out of the skies, and if you're new to the channel, I'm going to show you a couple of quick clips here to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I think I have a couple of them still here. Let's see, where is the other one at? Well, let me show you this one here. This is during the eclipse, there was the chariots of fire. Also, there was a flame seen up in the sky, and no, it wasn't the comet. I mean, I can't believe some people actually thought that was a comet. It was a ball of flame flying around in the sky with a dark figure sitting on its back. I called it a chariot of fire, and I believe that's what it is. But I'll play this for you real quick here in a second. I wanted to look, though, and see if I have all my videos over here. I can show you better. I think I do. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so let me show you this one right. Well, let's see. That one's kind of long. I don't want to take you down that rabbit hole. Well, maybe I'll just show you this one. So if you've been here most of the stream, you can see how that could relate to this mythology and why it has something to do with the Olympics and why it has something to do with the old king going out, new one coming in, even related to the Pharaoh that's going to be coming in the United States here very soon, and how it can tie to him and the symbolism and so on that he shows. And then this is another little clip from another series called Reborn that was put out showing symbolism of exactly what we ended up seeing. Now, someone please tell me how they knew that there was going to be a huge spark that would be seen around the world called the Northern Lights or whatever. They were no longer northern, they were everywhere, right? So how did they know that the eclipse was going to trigger these Northern Lights? Unless they've been here before, or they have history of being at this time before, because we are in a cycle. Everything in this world, including the sun and the moon and everything, runs in cycles. And we've been through this before. Well, maybe not me and you, but this world has. And who knows, maybe we have too. I don't know. But it's interesting to ponder how they do know enough to put it into a show called Reborn. This was called Reborn. You see, they call it Heroes Reborn. What they're talking about is the fallen that are coming back down. Okay. And the spirits of those beings, they either continue to fall or fall once again. But I think it's a continuous fall every so often that we get to witness the fall of some of these fallen ones. Okay. And the other video I showed you a while ago with those black entities flying through the sky, there's no light in them. And yet all the angels that I've seen, and I show them all the time, and I see them all, well, I don't show them all the time. I've done documentaries on them, but they're seen all the time, especially nowadays. They get seen all the time. And I was going to show you, I think this one is one. I know you can't, probably can't see it at all, as a matter of fact. Let me go to here. But when you see these balls of light in the heavens, like this, they're looking at right here. Okay. See all these balls of white light? Okay. Those are angels. Now, when you, like what we seen there in the eclipse was dark entities flying around. Okay. It'd be pretty easy to understand what the dark ones are and what the white ones are. Okay. I've seen angels just like this in front of me, no more than 50 feet away, sometimes further, of course, in excess of 50 times. And overall, as far as angel count, I've probably seen 120, 130, somewhere up in there. I've lost count. They've come to me so many times, and I know that's hard to believe, but Miss Kim sitting here, she witnessed them before. And other people have been with me and witnessed. They wanted to go see the angels, so I'd take them down there and show them the angels. And the angels would come up, and they would show me things from time to time. Like I seen one cast a lightning bolt into the ocean. I've seen them streak across the sky and leave what looks like pixie dust behind them. They did it one time right above my head. Pixie dust looked like floating down. probably where they got the ideas for Tinkerbell in Disney, right? So, anyways, I think I've kind of about covered just the general. I've got a lot more, but I can't pull it up because my computer is my cell phone connection with my computer to be able to show you the images on there that normally works fine crashed right as I was going live, so I can't show that to you. But yeah, so we'll be back. This is just one little peek into Operation Mania, because Menia, definition for Menia in numerous languages is mania, and people going crazy over stuff that really ain't real. It's losing your mind over things that you've been led to believe are real, like aliens. Okay, that's what comes to mind when I think of that. Is that if something was to come up and be shown that there were aliens, invading the world or whatever, or showing up, people would lose their mind. It'd be mania. But they wouldn't be real because there's no such thing as an alien. There's demons, there's fallen, there's all kinds of things that are real, but they're all from here. There's nothing from out there, from other so-called planets that are billions of miles away. That's fantasy. That's NASA fantasy. NASA in Hebrew means deceive. So with all that being said, guys, I'm going to let you guys go today. I greatly appreciate you being here. I know some of that reading was kind of a little rough, but I think if you stuck around and you listened, you understand why I was wanting to show it to you. One last thing, though, before I let you go. If you want to help promote my work, I'm going to tell you a way you can do it that don't cost a dime, and you're already doing it. And that is whenever you're on another video, anywhere else on the internet, anytime you're making a comment, or probably mostly comments, but you can put, especially on YouTube, okay? On YouTube, you can put at the Supernatural Show. When you type in at and start typing the Supernatural Show, you'll see it pop up probably and show you the link that will bring people to this channel. So like if you're just making a comment on some dogs fighting, okay, on some video, whatever, it doesn't matter where it comes from, we want to pull people in so that they can learn the truth, right? So, and YouTube ain't going to do it. So y'all guys can help me. There's 111 just in YouTube sitting here watching, and hundreds on other platforms, and thousands that'll see this before it's over with. So just try to remember, and I'll remind you more, but put at symbol, the Supernatural Show, all one word, and it'll probably pop up. If it don't, just leave it there, at the Supernatural Show. If it does pop up and show you the little icon you can click on that's related to my channel, you click on that, and then it creates a direct link. So that would help, because it'll drive people over here, and it only takes a second to type that. So I appreciate you guys, and I love you. Our Father in heaven loves you. And if you've never watched the extra or the credits on the show, if you're a supporter of this work, you might want to check it out today. I'll leave it at that. So with that being said, I'll say one more thing.